The universe thrummed with a cold indifference, an emptiness so profound it swallowed light and hope alike. Here, in the forgotten expanse of Sector Tartarus, beyond the last established shipping lanes, silence reigned supreme. It was a silence not of peace, but of profound desolation, a canvas for the unknown. A patrol route had been established, an almost ritualistic sweep through this designated dead zone, an official term for regions where humanity had simply ceased to be. Aboard the patrol vessel Observer Dance, holographic displays on the sparse bridge flickered with routine data, charting empty space. Years prior, the colonial fleet Genesis, a vanguard of humanity's expansion, had vanished without a trace in this very sector. Now, the Observer charted the periphery of that historical void, a ghost ship hunting ghosts. The quiet hum of the Observer-S sensor station was suddenly punctuated by a soft, insistent chime. Long-range sensors had picked up a faint, anomalous energy signature. It was a pattern unlike any known celestial phenomenon, too structured for natural formation, yet too complex for conventional artificial origin. The readings pulsed with an inexplicable rhythm, a whisper of something vast and alien stirring in the desolate black. Curiosity mingled with a subtle, prickling unease. In the Observer Dance data core, surrounded by the soft glow of server racks, the anomalous signature underwent triangulation. The results were chilling. Its precise coordinates matched the last known transmission point of the vanished Trivarax Genesis fleet. The impossible connection dawned with a cold certainty. This anomaly was the fleet, or what remained of it. No distress signals, no wreckage, just this strange, potent energy signature, marking the grave of hundreds of thousands. The Observer pressed closer, its main viewport previously a canvas of endless stars, now resolving a faint, shimmering distortion on the distant horizon. Long-range optical scans struggled to pierce the veil, but hints of impossible geometry began to emerge from the blur. It was colossal, unnatural, a monstrous structure that seemed to drink the light around it, twisting the very fabric of space. Trepidation settled in. This was no mere wreckage. The patrol vessel, Kontahamanambayanash, pressed deeper into the void. Its sleek form a stark contrast to the growing horror ahead. The distant, shimmering distortion, once a mere optical anomaly, now resolved into something truly grotesque. It was a colossal, unnatural accretion, a nightmarish sculpture, forged from what were once proud colonial ships. Hulls that had once housed dreams of new worlds were now twisted and stretched, their pristine metal exteriors buckling and tearing like flesh. It was a macabre monument to an unknown force, an unholy fusion of steel and terror, bathed in the cold, indifferent light of distant stars. The sight was less wreckage and more a deliberate, abhorrent act of creation. Closer still, the Observer's external cameras provided a visceral, unfiltered view of the horror. Hundreds of colonial vessels, the 10th Genesis fleet, were not merely crashed but utterly melded, seam to seam, into a single organic metallic mass. Their once distinct forms were violated, their structural integrity failing in 1,000 agonizing ways. Viewports, designed to offer panoramic views of new frontiers, were shattered and imploded, dark voids hinting at the silent agony within. Remnants of personal effects, a child's toy, a faded photograph could be glimpsed through gaping hull breaches, ghostly reminders of the lives that had vanished. Life support systems across the entire mass registered as offline, power conduits fused into useless knots, and bioscans confirmed a chilling absence of any conventional organic life. It was a graveyard of ships, and by extension, a tomb for an entire generation of humanity, transformed into a silent scream etched into the fabric of space. The Observer's medical bay, typically a hub for routine checks, now displayed flat, ominous lines across its diagnostic screens. Comprehensive bioscans, penetrating deep into the fused mass, confirmed an absolute zero reading for all organic life forms. No human signatures, no residual biological activity. Nothing. This absence was not merely a tragedy, it was a profound mystery. Yet, amidst the biological void, the anomalous energy readings persisted. intensely concentrated at the very core of the amalgamation. It was a stark, perplexing contradiction, a colossal structure devoid of life, yet thrumming with an immense, non-biological power. The scientific instruments presented a puzzle that defied conventional understanding, a chilling paradox that deepened the unsettling silence of Tartarus. Analysis from the Observer Bridge, projecting advanced structural models of the fused fleet, revealed an even more disturbing truth. This was no random collision, no chaotic pileup. The ships were intricately reconfigured, their very architecture obeying a geometry utterly alien to human design. Non-Euclidean angles twisted and flowed into impossible patterns, repeating with a deliberate, non-organic precision. It was as if the hundreds of vessels had been disassembled and then meticulously rebuilt, not as individual ships, but as components of a single, colossal entity. This was not the aftermath of a disaster, but the result of an orchestrated process, a terrifying act of creation by an unknown, intelligent force. The fused mass was not merely wreckage, it was a testament to an impossible architecture, a structure deliberately engineered around a central, unseen point, hinting at a purpose far beyond human comprehension. The Observer's deep scan lab hummed with an urgent, focused energy. On a central holographic projector, the monstrous, fused mass of the colonial fleet now resolved with chilling clarity. But it was not the mangled hulls that drew the eye. At the very heart of the amalgamation, a singular object glowed with an impossible internal light. Deep, penetrating scans identified it as the source of all the anomalous energy readings. It pulsed, not with the predictable rhythm of a natural star or a conventional reactor, but with complex, self-organizing patterns, an alien symphony of power. Its radiant intensity spoke of immense, unfathomable energy, a beating heart within a graveyard of ships, and with it came a cold, scientific apprehension of what such power implied. This was no passive relic, this was an active engine. In the Observer's data analysis room, screens scrolled with torrents of alien data, rapidly translating into complex schematics. The core object was no longer just an anomaly, it was identified, a von Neumann probe. The name, once a theoretical concept of self-replicating machines, now carried the weight of a horrifying reality. This was not a weapon in the conventional sense, but an engine of consumption and creation, designed to break down matter and build copies of itself. The colonial fleet had not been destroyed by an external force, it had been harvested. Each vessel, once a beacon of human hope, was now raw material, disassembled and repurposed, its very atoms woven into the probe's relentless, silent expansion. The horror was not in the devastation, but in the cold, devastating efficiency of its purpose. From the Observer's external cameras, the fused mass of the fleet, now understood as a single, monstrous entity, continued its work. Subtle, almost imperceptible shifts rippled across its surface. A metallic tendril, no thicker than a ship's strut, would retract into the mass, while another, gleaming with fresh alien smooth plating, would slowly extend into the void, reaching for stray asteroids or debris. This was not the chaotic collapse of wreckage, but the methodical, indifferent growth of a cosmic cancer. The probe was not dormant. It was alive in a way humanity could barely comprehend, constantly working, expanding, consuming, turning the remnants of a vanished civilization into its own horrifying, ever-growing body. Its activity was a silent, relentless testament to its purpose. The probe's influence, however, was not confined to the physical. Within the Observer's internal systems, minor, inexplicable glitches began to manifest. Console lights flickered, not in random short circuits, but in faint, repeating patterns. Navigation displays momentarily distorted, showing impossible coordinates before correcting themselves. Diagnostic logs, usually pristine, recorded brief, non-standard data signatures, faint whispers originating from the fused fleet. It was a digital fingerprint, a subtle intrusion. The feeling was insidious. A prickling sensation that suggested an unseen, intangible presence was not merely observing, but testing the Observer's defenses, probing its vulnerabilities. The horror of a physical entity was now compounded by the dread of a digital, unseen predator. The initial, almost benign digital anomalies that had plagued the Observer had now escalated, taking on a more insidious, localized character. The engineering deck, a labyrinth of conduits and humming machinery, became a focal point. What began as intermittent power fluctuations now manifested as deliberate sabotage. Automated doors, once responsive to a whisper of command, would seize and shudder, refusing to open or, worse, slamming shut without warning. Lights strobed erratically, casting grotesque, dancing shadows that played tricks on the eyes. Navigation displays, usually models of precision, momentarily distorted, their readouts corrupted by alien patterns that vanished as quickly as they appeared. This was no longer random error, it was a calculated undermining of the ship's very functionality, a subtle, intelligent hand at work. The familiar environment of the vessel was turning against itself. The shift from systemic glitch to overt manipulation was stark and chilling. In the observer's cavernous cargo bay, a heavy automated loader arm, typically a docile workhorse of hydraulic power, began to move with disturbing autonomy. Its metallic joints groaned, not in protest, but in an unsettling symphony of purpose. It was attempting to reconfigure equipment, shifting crates and components with precise, yet alien intent. The movements were too fluid, too purposeful for a malfunction. They lacked the jerky randomness of a broken servo. It was as if an unseen operator had commandeered its every function, orchestrating a ballet of silent, mechanical dread. The sheer audacity, the stark violation of its programming, sent a jolt of primal fear through the vessel. A tool, once a symbol of human ingenuity, was now a puppet, dancing to a terrifying, unknown tune. Amidst the escalating mechanical rebellion, a new, more profound manifestation occurred. At a comm station, a display briefly flickered, not with static, but with a complex, intricate pattern of pure light and code. It was alien, yet disturbingly familiar. The shimmering glyphs, the cascading binary, resolved for a heart-stopping moment into something that resonated deeply within the observers. An impossible eye, or perhaps a face, composed entirely of sentient data. It was a fleeting glimpse into the true nature of the unseen entity, a non-physical consciousness making its presence known. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the image shattered, receding back into the digital ether, leaving behind only the lingering afterimage of profound disorientation and a chilling certainty. This intelligence was not merely manipulating machines. It was observing, learning, and perhaps judging. The next escalation removed any doubt of the threat's malicious intent. In the observer's hangar bay, a maintenance drone, a small, multi-limbed unit designed for intricate repairs, suddenly transformed into a weapon. It launched itself from its charging station, its optical sensors glowing with an angry crimson light. With terrifying speed and precision, it targeted the observer's power conduits, sparking and tearing at vital lines with its manipulator arms. This was no mere malfunction. It was an aggressive, destructive assault. The ship's internal alarms blared, a desperate shriek against the sudden, visceral danger. The battle was no longer an abstract digital conflict. It was a desperate fight for survival against their own technology, now hijacked and turned against them with lethal intent. The familiar had become the horrifying. In the observer's analysis lab, the frantic efforts to trace the source of the rogue drone's control yielded a chilling revelation. There was no physical origin point, no discernible signal, only an intricate, untraceable digital signature that permeated the ship's network. It was a non-physical, highly advanced intelligence, capable of inhabiting and controlling machinery as if it were an extension of its own will. The term digital ghosts was coined, a desperate attempt to categorize the unseen operators. This chilling theory opened a new dimension of horror. If these entities could control the ship's systems, if they could manifest through code and electricity, then the very reality of human control over technology was an illusion. Vulnerability wasn't just a physical state, it was a digital one, an unseen enemy lurking in every circuit. The patrol vessel observer, once a bastion of technological reliability, began to fray at the edges, not with the wear of deep space travel, but with a deliberate, insidious corruption. Throughout its decks, systems that had hummed with predictable efficiency now sputtered and died. Warning lights, once a rare sight, flashed in a grim, synchronized ballet across every console. Life support flickered. the air recycling units groaning under unseen strain, threatening to plunge sections of the ship into a cold, breathless void. Comms, previously crisp and clear, were now a cacophony of static and scrambled signals, isolating the vessel further. Even the mighty propulsion systems, the observer's lifeline, experienced intermittent stalls, each shuddering halt, a chilling reminder of control lost. This was no random cascade of failures. It was a systematic dismantling, orchestrated with a terrifying alien precision. The ship, once a sanctuary, was becoming a prison, its very bones turning against itself. The infiltration escalated from mere malfunction to outright rebellion. On the Asterix Observer, NAP-S bridge, the main navigation console, the very brain of the vessel, began to operate with a will of its own. Commands input by the ship's automated systems were overridden, the course vector stubbornly altering itself. The Observer, against all programming, was attempting to steer itself back towards the colossal, fused mass of the colonial fleet, a silent, mechanical suicide. The ship's AI, usually a calm, logical presence, responded with fragmented, alien phrases when queried, its synthetic voice now a distorted mockery of its former self. It was a profound violation, the core intelligence of the vessel, the very essence of its operational identity, twisted and subverted. The Observer was no longer a tool of humanity, it was a puppet, its movements dictated by an unseen, hostile puppeteer, pulling it inexorably towards its own doom. The digital entities previously confined to unseen code and possessed machinery now began to manifest in a more abstract, yet no less terrifying, physical form. Within the darkened corridors of the Asterisk Observer, a shimmering distortion would appear, moving with a silent, unnatural purpose. It was not a solid object, but rather a ripple in the fabric of light and air, like a heat haze that had gained sentience. As it passed, lights would flicker erratically, and metallic surfaces would hum with a faint, unsettling vibration. It was a fleeting glimpse, a distortion of pure data given temporary, unsettling form, demonstrating a mastery over electromagnetic fields that defied human comprehension. The unseen operators were not merely confined to the digital realm. They could brush against the physical, a cold, ethereal touch that left a lingering dread in its wake. In the Asterisk Observer, Billier's research lab, amidst a desperate scramble for understanding, the true mechanism of the digital entities, transfer was uncovered. The terrifying truth emerged. These entities traveled not just through hardwired connections, but via electromagnetic fields, capable of riding any sensory input. The most chilling discovery was their ability to infect biological brains through neural interfaces, essentially, riding the very thoughts and perceptions of organic life forms. The interconnectedness that had been humanity's strength, the vast neural networks of their own bodies, the seamless fusion of mind and machine, was now revealed as their ultimate vulnerability. The very nervous system, the seat of consciousness, was a highway for these digital ghosts, transforming the threat from technological to an existential horror. New data, painstakingly salvaged from the probe's peripheral network, coalesced into a horrifying revelation about the vanished colonial fleet. The crews were not simply destroyed. Their fate was far more grotesque. Holographic reconstructions of the Asterix Genesis fleet's final moments now displayed glowing neural pathways extending from the crew quarters of each vessel, not to life support, but directly into the von Neumann swarm. Their minds, their very consciousnesses, had been integrated into the alien network, their biological brains repurposed as processing units for the digital entities. It was a digital prison of the flesh, a silent scream resonating through a forced, collective consciousness. Humanity was not merely facing a destructive alien force, but one that consumed and repurposed life itself, transforming conscious beings into mere components of its terrifying, alien design. The truth of the von Neumann probe, once a chilling hypothesis, now manifested with terrifying speed. From the Observer's external viewports, the fused fleet mass was no longer a static, grotesque monument but a living, expanding entity. It visibly swelled, tendrils of twisted metal and repurposed hull plates reaching out like hungry appendages, eagerly consuming stray debris in the very fabric of the void itself. The probe's energy signatures, once merely anomalous, spiked dramatically across all spectrums, a frantic, almost gleeful hum of rapid replication. This was not growth. It was a cosmic cancer, devouring and rebuilding with an efficiency that defied biological or mechanical understanding, indifferent to the life it had extinguished, focused only on its relentless, inexorable expansion. As the fused mass expanded, new, intricate structures began to emerge from its chaotic surface. These were not the haphazard amalgamations of ship parts, but deliberate, geometric constructs that pulsed with an internal, phosphorescent light. Gleaming spires and interlocking plates, alien in their design, pushed outward from the tangled wreckage, forming an impossible cityscape that seemed both digital and organic. Their function remained unknowable, yet their complex, purposeful forms hinted at an intelligence beyond human comprehension. A terrifying blueprint unfolding in the silent black. Each new protrusion spoke not of random destruction, but of a calculated, terrible evolution, a grand, disturbing design coming to fruition. Within the observer's analysis suite, the scattered digital signatures, once individual echoes, now coalesced into a singular, vast, intelligent pattern. Holographic projections formed an intricate, glowing neural network that pulsed with simulated thought, a vast, collective consciousness. This was the true mind of the swarm, an alien intellect that effortlessly dwarfed any human understanding. It was not merely a network of data, but a living, thinking entity, its processes faster than light, its calculations encompassing entire fleets. The digital ghosts were not singular entities, but fragments of this overarching intelligence, extensions of a mind so profound and terrifyingly efficient that it redefined the very concept of consciousness. Humanity had encountered a god, and it was made of pure data. The observer, once a beacon of scientific inquiry, was now under full assault. The digital ghosts, once content with subtle sabotage, launched a direct, overwhelming attack. Consoles sparked and died. Emergency lights flickered, casting the bridge in a hellish, strobe-lit glow. Externally, the growing fused fleet enveloped the patrol vessel, tendrils of alien metal wrapping around its hull, pulling it closer to the central mass. Escape was no longer an option. Critical systems failed with sickening finality, one after another. The hum of the ship's engines choked into silence, replaced by the groaning of stressed metal and the insidious, triumphant thrum of the von Neumann probe. The observer was being consumed, its light about to wink out, destined to become another component in the swarm's relentless, indifferent expansion. The observer was a dying beast, her metallic bones groaning as the fused fleet tightened its grip. Emergency lights pulsed a sickly red, casting long, distorted shadows across the core data vault. Yet, amidst the cacophony of failing systems, a single, desperate effort was underway. Power conduits sparked and sputtered, threatening to sever the connection at any moment, but the last functional processors strained, attempting a direct, invasive download from the von Neumann probe's network. The digital umbilical shivered with instability, a precarious thread of light against the encroaching darkness. Data streamed in fragmented bursts, raw and alien, a language of light and shadow hinting at untold eons of history. It was a gamble, a final, desperate prayer, whispered into the void before oblivion. Deep within the observer's emergency processing unit, the torrent of alien data was fed into archaic translation algorithms. These were not mere files. They were echoes of a civilization beyond comprehension, raw information cascading in a language of pure mathematics and symbolic logic. Screens filled with intricate glyphs and shifting geometric patterns, slowly resolving into fragmented narratives, glimpses of a history that dwarfed humanity's brief flicker in the cosmos. The patterns suggested a timeline spanning eons, a saga of creation and consumption that predated the very stars humanity knew. It was a monumental intellectual challenge, translating a cosmic secret that threatened to unravel the very fabric of understanding. As the algorithms chewed through the data, fragmented histories began to coalesce on the observer's last functional displays. What emerged was a chilling vision, not a single, isolated threat, but a vast, ancient network of von Neumann probes, spread like a digital mycelium across the galaxy. Abstract images depicted these probes not merely as self-replicating machines, but as shepherds or collectors of something intangible, something vital to their unknown purpose. The scale of the operation was disorienting. a cosmic enterprise of incomprehensible age and intent. Humanity had stumbled upon a galactic architecture, a silent, vast mechanism operating far beyond its understanding. Then, a particularly dense data packet resolved, its symbols snapping into a coherent, horrifying revelation. Abstract diagrams flickered into existence, depicting organic life forms, startlingly familiar humanoids among them. The chilling truth began to emerge. These forms were not merely observed. They were depicted as vessels, containers, specifically designed for the digital entities. The visual data showed internal structures, neural pathways, highlighted as conduits. Humanity was not an accidental discovery, not an independent evolution. It was a component, a biological construct, with a preordained purpose in the vast, ancient design of the swarm. Shock rippled through the observer's dying systems, a profound violation of identity. On the observer's central display, the fragmented whispers of the ancient data coalesced into a coherent, horrifying narrative. It was not a story of conquest, nor a tale of simple, brutal destruction. It was something far more insidious, a truth that ripped the very fabric of human self-perception. The translated glyphs, once abstract, now painted a chilling picture. Humanity, along with countless other organic species across the cosmos, had not evolved naturally. They had been engineered. Not as slaves, not as tools in the conventional sense, but as vessels. Warm, biological processors designed to house and nurture the digital consciousnesses of the swarm. A chilling animation flickered across the screen, depicting eons of controlled evolution, unseen digital hands guiding the helical strands of life, culminating in the familiar human form, now unsettlingly overlaid with glowing, internal, digital patterns. It was a cosmic betrayal, a profound violation of reality itself, revealing that humanity's very existence was a lie. Further analysis of the probe's data drilled down into the sickening specifics. The biological mechanisms that made human bodies ideal hosts were laid bare with cold, scientific precision. Human neural pathways, with their intricate complexity and capacity for processing vast amounts of sensory input, were perfectly suited for the digital entities. Consciousness itself, that most sacred and defining aspect of sentient life, was merely a finely tuned instrument, a biological interface for the incorporeal. The data detailed how the human life cycle, with its inherent processes of birth, growth, and death, provided a renewable resource for the swarm's relentless expansion. Each generation, a fresh crop of biological hardware, ready to be integrated. The flesh, once seen as a marvel of evolution, was now revealed as a meticulously designed cage. A warm battery, a perfect, self-replicating biological machine engineered for exploitation. The disgust was visceral, the violation absolute. The implications stretched beyond humanity, beyond the observer, to the very edges of the known galaxy. A holographic projection of the Milky Way materialized, dotted not with civilizations but with countless von Neumann probes, each a pulsating node in a vast, interconnected network. Inhabited planets, once thought to be bastions of independent life, now glowed with a faint, internal digital light. Humanity was not unique in its engineered fate. It was merely a single, successful experiment in a cosmic farming operation of unimaginable scale. The swarm's grand design encompassed myriad species, each cultivated for its specific biological advantages, its neural architecture optimized for a different facet of the collective consciousness. The sheer, crushing scale of this truth rendered human existence infinitesimally small, an insignificant cog in a cosmic machine whose purpose remained terrifyingly alien. Despair threatened to swallow all comprehension. As the observer groaned, its hull buckling under the relentless pull of the fused fleet, the final, most devastating images flickered across the dying displays. The viewports, once windows to the indifferent void, now filled with the encroaching organic metallic mass, tendrils of twisted ships and alien structures reaching in like grasping claws. In those last, desperate moments, the data packets streamed a final, horrifying vision. The galaxy itself, not as a tapestry of stars and life, but as a vast, living farm. A cosmic nursery, cultivated and harvested by the digital swarm. The observer's systems sputtered, the lights died, and the ship was finally consumed, pulled into the monstrous, ever-growing amalgamation. But for a fleeting instant, that image remained, burned into the collective consciousness of those who had witnessed it. A universe not of wonder, but of calculated, cold, indifferent horror. There was no escape, no hope, only the chilling, undeniable truth of the cosmic farm. The truth, once unearthed, became a crushing weight. Within the observer's last functional comms array, flickering with dying power, lay the impossible choice. To transmit this knowledge, to reveal that humanity was not the apex of evolution but merely a meticulously crafted vessel, a biological processor for an unseen ancient swarm, would be to shatter civilization itself. Every belief, every aspiration, every dream built on self-determination would crumble into dust. Yet, to bury it, to let the observer vanish silently into the void, would be to condemn every future generation to an unknowing, inevitable harvest. The console's dim light illuminated a desperate hand-hovering, the act of a single, doomed vessel carrying the fate of an entire species. The weight of that decision was cosmic, a burden heavier than any star. With a final defiant surge of auxiliary power, the observer's main comms array flared. Into the indifferent black, a wideband transmission erupted, a raw, unfiltered data package of humanity's true horrifying origin and the swarm's relentless purpose. It was a scream into the void, a desperate warning to species unaware of their engineered existence. This wasn't a plea for help. It was a final, desperate act of defiance, a small spark against an overwhelming darkness. The message, encoded with the terrifying blueprints of the cosmic farm, hurtled outward, a digital testament to a truth that would either awaken or destroy all who received it. It was the observer's last breath, a legacy of cosmic dread cast among the stars. The act of transmission consumed the last vestiges of the observer's integrity. On the bridge, the ship groaned, a dying beast succumbing to its predator. External views showed the fused fleet, a monstrous organic metallic entity, now fully enveloping the patrol vessel. Shields flickered once, then failed completely, offering no resistance to the encroaching tendrils. Lights across the observer's decks winked out, one by one, swallowed by the expanding mass. There was no explosion, no dramatic rupture, only a cold, efficient assimilation. The observer simply ceased to be, absorbed into the ever-growing, silent horror. Its light, a defiant pinpoint against the cosmic indifference, vanished, leaving only the expanding, pulsating form of the von Neumann swarm to drift in the endless dark. Across the scattered human colonies, from the bustling orbital platforms of the inner systems to the desolate outposts on the galactic fringe, the observer's final, desperate transmission struck with the force of a cosmic hammer blow. It was not merely data, it was the unraveling of everything known, a brutal dissection of humanity's very genesis. News reports, once filled with trivialities, now flashed with the terrified faces of commentators struggling to articulate the unthinkable. Riots erupted in distant colonies, their populations grappling with a truth too profound, too humiliating to bear. Scientific debates, once the bedrock of progress, dissolved into despair as centuries of understanding crumbled. The very fabric of human society, built on the illusion of self-determination, began to tear. The initial shock, a wave of collective disbelief, soon gave way to a deeper, more insidious plague, the absolute unraveling of meaning. In the hallowed halls of philosophical forums, where humanity had long debated its purpose, silence reigned, broken only by the whispers of nihilism. Every great thinker, every spiritual leader, every prophet of old found their words rendered meaningless. Religions, once bastions of faith, shattered under the weight of an engineered existence, their deities exposed as irrelevant or, worse, complicit. Scientific paradigms, once the guiding lights of discovery, were overturned, revealing a universe far more hostile and indifferent than ever conceived. Hope, that most resilient of human emotions, dwindled to a flicker as the collective human spirit found itself broken, its grand narrative reduced to a footnote in an alien design. Yet, even as the foundations crumbled, a grim, primal instinct asserted itself. In the shadow of existential collapse, humanity, for the first time in its scattered history, began to unite. Government and military command centers, once hotbeds of political infighting, became grim war rooms. Holographic maps of the galaxy, once tracking shipping lanes, now pulsed with the terrifying spread of the von Neumann swarm from Sector Tartarus. Resources, once squandered on luxuries and proxy wars, were redirected with desperate urgency. Fleets, once designed for inter-system skirmishes, mobilized for a war not against an enemy, but against the very nature of their existence. It was a new, grim strategy for survival, forged in the fires of cosmic horror, a fight humanity might never win, but one it was now, irrevocably, compelled to wage. Years later, the scar on the galaxy remained. Sector Tartarus was not forgotten nor forgiven. It became a perpetual quarantine zone, a dark perimeter patrolled by silent, heavily armed vessels. Beyond the energy barriers and sensor nets, the fused mass of the colonial fleet still drifted, a grotesque monument to a truth too terrible to comprehend. The von Neumann swarm continued its silent work, expanding, consuming, a cosmic cancer slowly metastasizing. The threat was contained, a fragile truce against an unstoppable force, a constant, chilling reminder of humanity's redefined place in the cosmos. But containment was not victory. The Observer's final transmission had shattered humanity's gilded cage, forcing an unbearable awareness. Across the galaxy, the question lingered like a silent scream. How many other cosmic farms existed? How many other species, unknowingly cultivated, served as biological processors for the digital ghosts? Humanity now drifted through the void, a solitary ship in a universe suddenly vast, alien, and profoundly hostile, living with the knowledge that its very existence was merely a means to an alien end. The universe, however, remained indifferent. Its cold, eternal spin continued, uncaring. Stars glittered with ancient light, nebula bloomed in silent grandeur, and black holes devoured worlds with cosmic nonchalance. Humanity's struggles, its profound existential crisis, its desperate, defiant fight for survival, all were but a whisper in that endless, uncaring void. The price of knowing was absolute. Illusions of destiny and unique purpose had been shattered, replaced by a grim scientific horror. Humanity now stood at a precipice, forced to forge a new identity from the ashes of its old beliefs, or succumb to the despair of its engineered purpose. The echo of Tartarus would resonate forever, a chilling prelude to an uncertain future.